They were watching you, weren't they? Waiting for the moment you'd crack, for the second you'd bow to the comfortable poison of who you used to be. They wanted evidence that you would fold back into the familiar cage, cling to the same tired excuses, let the old story keep you small. But you surprised them. You turned the violence inward. You made a choice so ruthless it felt like betrayal. You declared total war on the person in the mirror, not out of spite, but out of necessity. You stared at yourself with a surgeon's calm and decided the past had to die for anything real to live. Evolving meant demolition, ascending demanded annihilation. Going to war with the old self is not a clean cut, it's a slow, savage campaign. It's trench warfare inside your ribs, a relentless attrition that grinds habits, comforts, and cowardice into dust. The familiar fights tooth and nail. Old comforts plead, old fears scream, old weaknesses play the martyr, but you don't concede. You've seen what soft change produces, polite improvements that leave the core rotten. You wanted more. You wanted a new axis, a new standard. You wanted the sort of transformation that rewrites fate, not polishes regret. So you struck. You burned away the polite lies, scraped off the varnish of habit, smashed the mirrors that reflected a smaller version of you. It wasn't noble, it wasn't pretty, it was necessary and brutal. You learned to strip yourself down in the quiet hours when no applause was coming. You learned to sit with the hunger, to meet your reflection with cold-handed honesty and cut where it hurt. Every surrendered habit was a casualty, every swallowed excuse a body left at the roadside. The battlefield was your interior, no banners, no witnesses, only the clack of your own resolve and the echo of things you promised you'd never be again. The old you clung like a parasite, whispering familiar comforts, offering small mercies that would have killed your future by inches. You watched it try to bargain with memory and nostalgia to keep you tethered, but you had already mapped the cost. There is no room in the life you are building for yesterday's chains. You understood that some parts of yourself couldn't be softened into usefulness, they had to be excised. So you became surgeon and arsonist, both precise in the cut, absolute in the flame. With each act of annihilation, a new clarity arrived. Harsh, crystalline, every relinquished doubt widened the aperture of who you could be. Every smashed pattern revealed a sliver of truth you'd been too polite to notice before. You didn't just outgrow your past, you obliterated it so it couldn't claw its way back while you slept. Rebirth required violence because inertia is powerful and the familiar seductive. The world expects change to be gentle. It markets evolution as a sunrise, but you know the truth. Revolution is messy. It's thunder and fissures and the smell of scorched expectation. You've waged this internal war because the alternative was quiet decay, an existence where dreams are taxed into small, respectable compromises. You refused that. You chose to be dangerous to your own weaknesses, and in the smoke and ruin you found something purer, the core self, stripped of pretense, tempered by trial, sharper than it had any right to be. The fears and doubts that once governed you became targets, one by one felled. Insecurity was unmasked as the coward it always was, and when you stepped from the battleground, you felt raw and vulnerable and, above all, unbound. The process left a landscape of scorched earth where the old you had stood. That desolation is not empty, it's fertile. From those ashes, you can plant intention without the rot of past compromise. This is not a timid resurrection, it is a forging. You will carry the scars like medals because they mean you paid a price most won't. Some will call you cruel for killing what they think you ought to preserve. Others will whisper that you've lost softness. Let them. Softness is a currency the weak spend to feel loved. You spent pain into power. The life you took steps to claim requires appetite and ruthlessness. The civilizations of small comforts will see you as a threat because you refuse their slow death. You have remade yourself in fire and consequence. You are not the shy echo of some nicer man, you are the architect of a new trajectory, and this war, this necessary unmaking was the only path to it. Now rise from the ruin with the honest face of someone who sacrificed safety for sovereignty. The old you is gone, not mourned, not missed. In its place stands a spine of iron, a mind clear as obsidian, and a hunger that will not be satisfied by yesterday's illusions. The cost was high, but the reward is a life that finally fits. Something new is taking root. Fierce, relentless, impossible to stop. Who you are now isn't a small upgrade, it's an insurrection. You didn't merely adjust, you overthrew the parts of yourself that kept you small. You went to war with the familiar habits, the comfortable lies, the cowardice masquerading as safety, and you didn't just survive. survive that fight, you were reborn from it. Let them stare, let them whisper about the change they see. They'll applaud. The result, the unshaken figure who walks the rooms without carrying the past on their shoulders. They'll never witness the midnight battles you fought against your own reflections, the private skirmishes in the dark corridors of your mind. They don't know the tally of losses, the cost measured in burnt comforts and severed attachments. They see the finished shape and call it destiny. You know it's earned, hammered out in pain, and where the old you lies buried, where the war was fiercest in the trenches of habit and compromise. And out of that ruin the new you rises, unstoppable, unbreakable, ready for whatever the world sends next. Isn't it ironic that so much of what we call personality, the tangled web of habits, reactions, and default impulses, isn't some immutable essence but the architect of our prison? Every choice you make, every move you take, filters through that architecture. And if the architecture is rotten, your whole life is built on a cracked foundation. The version of you you've been dragging around like a corpse is often nothing more than an old program. Lines of behavior scripted by fear, laziness, and the small comforts of mediocrity. Until you rewrite that program, until you smash the brittle mask and scatter its pieces, the scenery around you will only rearrange itself into familiar patterns. You've seen it the way the same mistakes loop, how the same compromises produce predictable results. It's not coincidence, it's programming. The mind learns repetition. It favors the path of least resistance. The only cure is deliberate disruption. You must become the antagonist in your own life story, the force that refuses to let the passive protagonist continue playing small. This isn't tidy self-improvement where a few habits get polished. This is self-annihilation of the parts that sabotage and a ruthless reassembly of what remains. You can't buff the surface and expect the ground to shift. You have to excavate to the root. Pull out the corrupt code, excise the scripts that reroute your will into patterns that harm you, that demands brutal honesty, the kind that most people avoid because it cuts. But you have already started that work. You've waged the interior war and felt what it costs. There's no turning back. Your personality was the scaffolding of your private reality, but that scaffolding was warped by years of conditioning. Voices that told you who you were allowed to be, mirrors that reflected a smaller image, fears that taught you to hide. You've been living inside a map drawn by someone else's hand, a map that kept you predictable and therefore controllable. Now you see the borders for what they are. Now you know the habits that have kept you in the same pit, the passive agreements, the avoidance, the numb comforts. Identifying them is the first victory. Dismantling them is the labor. This process is violent only in the sense that truth always is. Comfort fights dirty, it lures you back with kindness and easy explanations. The old self pleads, nostalgia sounds like mercy when it whispers. But mercy for what? Mercy for mediocrity? Clemency for fear? You chose otherwise. You chose the hard declension. Do or become. You chose to trade the soft mirage of safety for the sharp edges of real change. That means cutting ties with people, rituals, and routines that anchor you in the past. It means letting grief for what was washed through you without building a mausoleum around it. It means tolerating discomfort because it is the necessary kiln for the work. Each time you surrender an old pattern, you widen the aperture of possibility. The small rebellions, the refusal to do the easy thing, the choice to stand when it's simpler to cower, accumulate into seismic shifts. You stop being subject to reactive inertia and start directing momentum. The truth is, you don't just outgrow bad habits. You surgically remove their capacity to call you back. You become a new operating system, disciplined, intentional, calibrated to a purpose that outruns yesterday's fears. Expect resistance. The world prefers manageable versions of you. Comfortable people are easier to keep in their place. When you refuse to fit, you unsettle others. Some will cheer, some will rage, some will attempt to pull you into old rhythms with guilt, charm, or the slow drip of expectation. That's inevitable. Your job is not to quiet them, it's to hold your line. Sovereignty is learned by practice. Steady choices, repeated acts of refusal, enforced boundaries. The more you practice, the less their agitation matters. Think of this as radical authorship. You are not simply reacting to circumstances, you are composing a life. Every decision prunes away the creeping vines of your former self and allows the new growth to spread. You will keep the parts that serve, the compassion that doesn't enable, the courage that doesn't become cruelty, and discard the rest. This is not about losing your humanity, it's about sharpening it, focusing it, making it a tool rather than a habit. In the aftermath, the landscape will look different. The ground where the old you stood will be scorched, that looks bleak to the uninitiated, but it's fertile by by design, ashes feed something fierce. From that soil you can plant deliberate intention and grow a life that reflects the new code you installed. You'll keep the scars because they are proof that you paid the price. You will walk with the gait of someone who has refused shortcuts, and when you look in the mirror you will see a person who was willing to do the work that most only talk about. So let them whisper, let them label. You did not choose this path because you wanted applause. You chose it because authenticity demanded it. The old self had to die for the new trajectory to live. That death was not wasted. It was currency spent to buy back your future. Stand in the heat of that purchase. Tend the new growth. Be fierce. Be relentless. Be unapologetically you. The revolution within is now the life without, and nothing will stop what you've decided to become. It's a counterfeit world, a mirage that's kept you numb, trapped in a life far below your capacity. Changing who you are isn't just picking up new habits, it's tearing up the whole story you've been living and writing a new one. You must become hyper-aware of every thought, every reflex, every old impulse that crawls up from that former self, and crush it before it can take root. Master your mind. Like a puppeteer, pull the strings with ruthless intent until that old version is nothing but a distant ghost that no longer haunts your steps. And here's the cruelest truth: that old self will fight tooth and nail. It does not want to die. It will whisper comforts, lure you back to the familiar, the easy. It will tell you change is impossible, that you are fixed and unchangeable. But you have seen the fractures in the foundation. You know the only way to build something real is to raise the rotten structure and start from bare ground. Your personality shaped your world, but now you are the architect. You choose what stays, what goes, who the new you will be after the ashes. This transformation is dark and painful, brutal even, yet it is the only path to true evolution. Become the sculptor of your destiny, chip away the faults, until only the truest form remains. So dismantle that old self, unmake the personality that kept you captive in a life you never chose. Rebuild, stronger, smarter, more lethal, a self unbound by past chains and forged in deliberate change and relentless discipline. Your new character will craft a new reality where you're no longer hostage to your mind but its master. They will watch, won't they? They'll witness the shedding of your old skin and tremble, because if you can remake yourself so utterly, nothing is impossible. You've learned detachment, waged war on who you were, and now stand at the edge of a world you designed with your own hands. Unstoppable. Now consider assumptions, cozy lies you've fed yourself, anchors tethering you to a worn post. Your assumptions about your limits, your destiny, and what life should be are shackles you willingly clip on easy excuses to numb the ache of mediocrity. Here's the bitter truth: your assumptions and your true potential dine at different tables in different worlds. One feasts in the dim glow of complacency, the other revels in the bright heat of becoming, the forbidden feast of raw power and infinite possibility. Yet your assumptions whisper that this is all there is, that you've already stretched as far as you can go, that the world you see is the only world that exists. But that's the trick, isn't it? The grand illusion. Assumptions are the cheap sugar of the mind, sweet, filling, but empty. They lull you, sedate you, convince you the walls are solid, the ceiling unbreakable, the limits permanent. But the truth, the dangerous, liberating truth, is that those walls, that ceiling, are nothing more than shadows, smoke painted on stone. You've been living in a prison you unknowingly designed, bowing to the rules you never questioned. Your true potential does not dine with your assumptions. It refuses to be caged by the lies you tell yourself. It is wild, savage, a beast with black fire in its veins, pacing in the dark, waiting to be unleashed. But you've kept it starving, haven't you? Kept it chained, muzzled, silenced, feeding the false gods of doubt and fear instead. While your assumptions grew bloated and strong, your potential rotted in the dark, unseen, unheard. Yet it has not died. It waits, and the longer it waits, the hungrier it becomes, gnawing at the edges of your carefully built illusions, restless, preparing to erupt and tear through the falsehoods you've mistaken for truth. You've felt it, haven't you? That gnawing ache of dissatisfaction, that quiet voice insisting there's more, much more, beyond the fragile fence of belief you've clung to. That's your potential, clawing at the walls, demanding entry. And here's the terrifying truth: it does not play by rules. It does not honor limits. It exists beyond boundaries in a realm of endless force and infinite creation. But to sit at that table, to taste the banquet, you must destroy the assumptions that once kept you safe. You must step into the abyss, into the shadowed halls where your potential thrives. Assumptions live in light, in comfort, in the shallow warmth of the known. There you settle for scraps, grateful for crumbs. But the realm of potential is dark, violent, consuming. It is a banquet for predators where only those ruthless enough to slay their false beliefs may feast. Your assumptions shrank you, folded you into a box, a neat little package the world could label, control, dismiss, can command, but your potential is the feral storm, untamed and merciless, breaking every cage, mocking every wall, shattering all control. It is the truth you've buried, the truth you feared, the knowing that you are infinitely more than the weak script you've been reciting. To claim it, to wield it, you must destroy every fragile belief you've built, torch your assumptions, and rise from the ashes remade in the ruthless fire of your real power. So ask yourself, will you sit at the table of illusions, starving on scraps, or step into the shadows and seize your seat at the table of truth where your potential waits, ravenous, ready to consume all that stands in its way? It's a choice, a dark, dangerous choice, but only you can make it. Your assumptions and your truth cannot coexist. One must perish for the other to live. And when you finally choose, when you sever the lies you've been feeding, you'll see the world you clung to was only a pale echo of the empire you are capable of building. The temptation of change, it slithers like a whisper in the dark, promising transformation, promising rebirth. You can almost taste it, can't you? The thrill of becoming more, greater, shedding old skin like a serpent. But here's the cruel twist. Change isn't born of wishful desire. No, it's far more sinister. You long for it, you ache for it, but soon the parasite of doubt creeps and overthinking, feeding on your fear, your insecurity, your hesitation. Questions gnaw at you. Am I ready? What if I fail? What if it's all another illusion? Before you know it, you're bound, trapped in the sticky web of your own mind, cocooned in paralysis. The fire of change that once raged bright inside flickers and fades beneath the endless echo of what ifs and maybes. You become your own executioner, the villain of your story, suffocating the very power you once sought to awaken. Don't be like them, the pitiful souls who worship their dreams, who craft castles of air only to watch them collapse to dust, all because they feared action. You know this truth, the mind is the battlefield, and the first war you must win is against yourself, against the whispering voices urging you to pause, to wait, to wither in stillness.